Thank you. Can we go to the agenda page? Thank you. So I'm just going to talk through my notes because otherwise I'm going to forget stuff. So forgive me if I go too fast, just sort of drop me a comment, or if you have any questions, maybe we can wait to the end of this bit, and we'll come back to those questions. So hello again to everyone, and thank you for joining us and taking on the role of chair or vice chair for your group. It's great to see everyone today. I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes or so talking through these points here, ending on some actions that we'd all like you to take next. This part of the recording is going to be made available to all of those chairs and vice chairs who are unable to join us today. So I'm just going to try and keep it quite brief so that it's not a massive long video for them to watch. Can we go to the next slide, please, Paul? Thank you, that lovely photo. So we have this session on the agenda today to help welcome you to your new role and to your peer network. So I'll be talking about what the role entails, and what support is available for you. My name's Hayley Barrett and I'm the CIPR's Group and Volunteer Coordinator. I work closely with the Group Chairs group and will be the person generally getting in touch about these meetings and sending the chair-only email updates to you. I tend to look after the monthly all volunteer newsletter too, so if you ever want to add anything to that, please do let me know. Sorry, I'm just admitting more people to the meeting there. So I sit in the volunteer support team, which was created around 3 years ago now. The team consists of Claire Bloomer. Claire will give you a little wave, even though she's already said hello, if you can see her photo in the background there. She's the CIPR's Director of Operations, and Claire will be covering off some of the meeting's agenda points later on, so you'll hear from her a bit more later. But Claire has overall responsibility for our team, and she ensures that volunteering is represented at senior staff level within the Institute. Claire will probably be quite a familiar face to those of you who've been part of the governance committees or been around for a while. Then we have Maha Jamil, also in the photo and in the background, if she can give you a wave, if you can see her. Maha's also a long-time CIPR staff member, so a lot of you will know her already. Maha is the People and Projects Manager at CIPR. She manages the team as well as leading on several of our key projects. Claire and Maha worked together most notably last year on the NES, the National Quality Standard Assessment, which we successfully passed last year. So to help carry out the equity, diversity and inclusion strategy, we have an EDI committee, and as you know, we have EDI champions sitting on each group and network. So those people will be in touch with Maha most often, I think. Maha coordinates with the champions. And then last, but very much not least, we have Paul Thurston, who's CIPR's Groups and Network Administrator. So Paul is kindly helping me with the PowerPoint there, and he can give you a wave as well. Paul facilitates a lot of the day-to-day group activities like setting up and managing your events and getting your monthly emails out to members. So he's always really busy, and he'll probably be the person most of your committee members will be familiar with, if they're not already. All of us in the team work together to support the groups and networks and with the wider staff team to coordinate activity across the organisation. You're welcome to get in touch with us, any of us, anytime, but we do recommend using the team email address as we will have access to this and can respond to you. The email address is volunteersupport, all lowercase, at cipr.co.uk. We'll often signpost you to the online volunteer hub. If you haven't seen that already, we'll be giving you links to that later on. We highly recommend bookmarking that volunteer hub page. It's not accessible to everybody, it's just to anybody that's registered as an active volunteer. It's part of our website that's home to all of the tools and the guidance that you might need to carry out your activities as a group. Those of us who've been CIPR chairs in the past will know that we used to provide an annual handbook in PDF format. So the move to the online resource happened a couple of years ago to enable us to keep things much more up to date for you. Can we have the next slide, please, Paul? Thank you. It's a very exciting slide. We've refreshed the volunteer recruitment and onboarding processes over the last couple of years. That's to help make volunteering more accessible, straightforward, and as impactful as possible for everybody. We're committed to supporting you as chairs to manage your committee, and also to carry out the programme of activity in alignment with the CIPR's strategy and ways of working. Our aim is to facilitate freedom within the framework. So you've probably heard this quite a lot. I heard it from Rachel Roberts a couple of years ago, quite a lot at our volunteer conference, and we've used that phrase quite often since. It's quite apt for us in the team and what we do. We aim to enable you as chairs to operate within the framework of the CIPR's policies and procedures, and with reference to the strategy and values, whilst having the freedom to adapt your group's activities to meet the needs of the members that you represent in your nation, your region, your sectors. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. That's really little. Some of you will have done some testing on this over the last few weeks for us, so thank you. That is for everybody else, you won't have seen that yet. That's the dashboard of the new volunteer induction programme with the 5 modules. So from 2025 onwards, we're going to require all group and network committee volunteers, including chairs, to complete a compulsory online induction course as part of the onboarding process. This is kind of to bring us up to standard with the way that we would onboard staff and the way that other organisations onboard their volunteers, to make sure that everybody receives the same sort of warm welcome to volunteers, that everyone has the explanation of how volunteering works within the Institute, is signposted to where we find resources, and finally to obtain the commitment of each volunteer to adhere by the CIPR's volunteer policy and one team working agreement. All committee members will be auto-enrolled, so everybody that is on our committee registers now will be auto-enrolled before the end of December, and you'll receive an instruction email on how to access the course via your My CIPR account. So this image is just a little sneak preview of what the dashboard looks like. There are 5 bite-sized modules covering general and more detailed aspects of volunteering within a group, with a mixture of accessible text, audio and video content. It's modelled on the EDI modules, which have been successfully released over the last year or so. You'll be prompted to click through and answer a couple of multiple choice questions at the end of each module. It should take up to an hour in total to complete all 5. That's what we've found on testing, though we know that those of you who've been volunteering for a long time might sort of whiz through those and they'll be quite easy for you. Can we have the next slide, please, Paul? Thank you. So the welcome session is something that we've done for the last couple of years. We know that it's been really valuable to see the community and feel part of the wider network of CIPR volunteers. Because we haven't had an opportunity to have a conference, we haven't been able to do that in person last year or the year before. So this is one of the ways that we can get everybody together from the outset. So following the group AGMs, we update all of our internal committee records, and the welcome email that everybody on a committee who's going to serve the following year gets will include an invitation to join this virtual welcome session. It's going to run over Zoom over lunchtime from 12 to 12:30 on the 14th of January. It's going to be hosted by 2025 CIPR President Advita Patel, who will share some of her plans for the year ahead and help us to kick things off on a really positive, collaborative note, as Rachel did for us this year. Sorry, I'm going to admit somebody else to the... There we go. Can I have the next slide, please, Paul? Thank you. Okay, so onto the chair-specific stuff. So group and network chairs, as you know, are key roles within the CIPR. As the active link between CIPR HQ and your local and sectoral peers, we're keen to support you in this important role, and we do this in several ways. We hold formal quarterly group chairs meetings like this one, which are led by the CIPR President or President-elect. These meetings allow us to keep you updated on strategic and operational updates from board, council, standing committees and the staff team. They also provide opportunity for you to speak on a regular basis with the CIPR President, like Rachel. Group chairs are required to attend the formal meetings, though you can send another committee member to represent the group if you're unable to make it. I don't know if anybody else can see the list there, but there's a couple of people who keep dropping out and coming back into the meeting, so I'm just admitting them. There we go. So to help you make the best use of your network of chairs, we also schedule optional agenda-free meetings in between these formal dates. These are there for you to discuss any topical issues and share information. You should have received calendar invites now, hopefully, for all of the formal and informal 2025 dates. Drop me a message if you haven't. And on the subject of the fellowship of the chairs, this is in my notes and I thought it was funny when I wrote that, obviously. Anyone who has been in the role for the last year or more that would be happy to be a buddy for a new chair, could you also please drop me a note and let me know? I know we've got a couple of new chairs who would appreciate that. We're mindful that you will have many pressures on your time, and we do our best to keep meetings and messaging to a minimum. But the volunteer team also do offer a one-to-one check-in meeting with you halfway through the year to see how things are going. So that's separate from these formal group chairs meetings. That's just between the volunteer team and you to see how things are going with your committee, or if you've got any particular questions outstanding that you've emailed us about and we haven't quite fully sort of resolved the issues for you. So if there's any important relevant information or resources that we need to provide you with in between the group chairs meetings, we send them to you as part of a weekly group chairs update email. Hopefully you will have all received the one that we sent last Friday, and there was one the Friday before that. We will be clear in those emails what information is confidential when there is confidential information to share, and what can be shared with your committee or in general. You won't receive one every week. You have recently, because we've had a lot to say, but only when there is information to share do we send those. They will come out on Fridays unless we need to contact you more urgently about something. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so here is a list of some of the professional development sessions that we've run over the last 2 years. Obviously, we'll share this slide so that you'll be able to actually click on these and view them on YouTube if you would like to. So Rachel has led the group chairs meetings as both vice president in 2023 and then this year as president. Rachel was the person who introduced these professional development sessions to offer chairs some role-specific training with the bonus of additional 5 CPD points per session to create some added value and make the most of your time. The sessions run over the lunch hour normally before the formal quarterly meetings, but they are optional and we do record them. So if you can't attend live, you can always watch back. And you can still claim CPD points as well for watching them back at a later date. So next year, so Advita Patel has already made some great suggestions for next year's sessions around sort of managing difficult conversations with your peers and committee members, public speaking. There's a variety of things that Advita has suggested that we're looking into. So we'll share these with you soon, but also your suggestions and requests are very welcome. So as ever, if you can email us at the volunteer support email address, if there's anything that you identify as an area that you particularly like support on or training with that would help with this role, then we're very keen to hear that. The next slide, please, Paul. Thank you. Managing your committee. So a large part of your role as the chair is going to entail managing the volunteer team. We aim to support you in this by having clear guidance and setting expectations from the outset by sharing the volunteer policy and our one team working agreement during the recruitment and onboarding process. So this is something that we've been working on over the last year or two. It's something that's come up in a lot of group chairs one-to-one calls and a lot of our sort of survey feedback. So those of you who have lots of experience managing people, managing teams, potentially feel that this is sort of teaching how to suck an egg, but we've introduced this as a part of the key sort of part of our onboarding and of our resources for chairs for a reason, because we realise that we do need to make those expectations really clear at the outset. So with our values consultant, Katie, who's also the inside group chair, so I'm not sure if Katie's already joined the call, but she'll be here a bit later if she hasn't. Last year, we developed a committee welcome slide deck. We will share links to this afterwards, but essentially that includes the reference to the volunteer policy, the one team working agreement, and gives some sort of good talking points for your first committee meeting of the year. So it should help you to structure your first committee meeting at which you'll want to establish or refresh a sense of shared purpose, vision and values. The deck is a template which includes some suggested talking points and it can be tailored to suit your group or network as needed. So if it hasn't been agreed previously, that first meeting of the year provides a good point at which to allocate roles according to availability, skills and interests. Apart from the requirements to have a named chair, budget manager and an EDI champion, the structure of the group committee, and even more so a network, is really flexible. It's up to you. We know that some groups benefit from lots of flexibility and role sharing, whilst it doesn't work well for others. So our Midlands co-chair, Andrea, who's on the call, will talk to us a little bit later in the meeting about how she and co-chair Kelly O'Hanlon successfully manage and motivate their busy committee. Having clarity about who will do what, when and why really helps to manage not only the workload, but also provides a good dispassionate reference point for any conversations down the line where someone hasn't been able to carry out their agreed role or tasks. We're here to support the members to volunteer, but also to support you in managing volunteering within your group. So please do get in touch with us if you have any questions at all about what our policy or procedures are around any of those aspects. Can we have the next slide, please, Paul? Thank you. Okay, so managing your activities and planning ahead. So when it comes to planning your group's activities for the year ahead, you've got access to various sources of information that might be helpful. Senior Marketing Officer Elena is also on the call, and she'll be sharing an at-a-glance view of major CIPR dates for 2025 a bit later on in the meeting. We'll include a copy of that in the minutes too. We keep our activities tightly aligned with the CIPR strategy pillars and our commercial objectives. It's always great value, though, when groups collaborate on core activities, for example, timing events and comms to promote membership, CPD, and chartership during our awareness weeks. We also ask that groups avoid running events and initiatives that clash with any of those key dates. All of the dates are noted on the shared group events calendar, which we ask everyone to use when booking your own events. It's to identify potential collaborations or clashes with other groups, but also so that we can help manage our resources. So even if, like Paul and I will quite often add your dates of your events to that shared calendar so that we can see who's using the CIPR Zoom account, for instance, and we can help manage that process. But you're very welcome to use it, and we encourage you to use it too when you're in your planning process. So the other note on planning is that group AGMs should happen between September and November, ideally. It's a really busy time of the year because of the AGMs being on, so you might want to think about any other sort of key activities and events happening before those dates. If you're planning to organise a large in-person event like a conference, it's really helpful also to loop the volunteer support team in at the beginning of that conversation when you're looking at dates so that we can help advise on what functionality the event booking platform has, and if needed, allocate some time for us to assist you when you need the support. There are some parts of that platform that are staff only access, unfortunately, so it's just really helpful for us to know sort of when we might be needing to do some sort of last minute support with ticketing and things like that. Group chairs and other officers are also given admin access to demographic data for the members of your group and to event registration information. You can access this at any time via your MyCIPR account. We regularly encourage members to complete their membership profiles, including the diversity data section, to help us better understand the makeup of members and to the makeup of membership, I should say, and to think about how we can meet their needs and where we may need to reach out to underrepresented groups. You can find guidance on accessing and understanding the data in the Volunteer Hub, but again, we're here for questions if you need to ask us for support. You are also welcome to request segmented data from the CIPR's member surveys if that's available. Each year, usually in September, the CIPR finance team will send you an estimated budget proposal for the following year based on the previous year's figures. If the committee doesn't agree with the proposal, it needs to prepare its own version with a supporting rationale. A template will be sent to you to complete this. The committee then uses that as a basis for planning activities in the following year. There's lots of information that I've written down here from the finance team, but it is in the AGM guidance and it's in the budget manager's guidance as well. So I'm going to skip past this for now. Just to the final bit on budgets are that the deadlines, the dates are set for budgeting as part of the overall CIPR finance cycle. So that's something that we have to work around. Chairs who plan to step down at the end of the year are encouraged to advertise for a new chair and hold their AGM as early as possible within that AGM period, maybe in September, so that your incoming chair has an opportunity to get involved in planning for the next year around those budgeting dates. So can I have the next slide, please, Paul? Thank you. So in summary, we have reached the end of the available time for this induction session today. So I'll finish up with a quick recap of the actions that we'd like you to take next. They are to complete the compulsory online induction. You'll receive an email with access details by the end of the month. To familiarise yourself with the Volunteer Hub so you know where to find guidance on CIPR branding, event management, group communications, links to the shared calendars, etc. To register to attend the welcome session on the 14th of January and see in the new year with your CIPR volunteer community. To use the committee welcome slides, which we'll share with you, to help structure your first meeting with your committee in 2025, setting out your agreed ways of working together. To make use of the chairs network. So again, Andrea will have some great advice, I'm sure, on committee management and motivation later in the meeting. But we'd just advise that if you haven't already, hopefully you'll all connect with each other on LinkedIn, follow each other's CIPR groups pages so you can see sort of what's going on across the wider network. to check that you have the group chairs meetings in your calendar, including the informal and professional development sessions. To check out any of the 23 and 24 professional development sessions recordings that you're interested in and claim your 5 CPD points per session for watching. Then finally, to check your group plans for 2025 dates against the key dates that my colleague Elena will be providing later on, and the shared group events calendar. Next slide, please, Paul. Thank you. So thank you for listening to me run through the general onboarding process for all volunteers. I'm really sick of the sound of my own voice now, and the key requirements and support for chairs. We will share a copy of all the slides with the links to the resources mentioned and the minutes of this meeting towards the end of this week. I will very happily hand back over to Rachel now for the next item. Thank you.